All right, great. Thank you, everyone. My name is Joe Ryan. Oh wait, I have to wait until I'm told that we are recording. Sorry. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe Ryan. I am the executive director of the Crux Alliance. Uh, Very quickly, the Crux Alliance is a group of technically oriented NGOs that support policymakers in the top 20 emitting countries design and enact robust, ambitious climate policies that help drive decarbonization and help communities thrive. And we can talk more about that. We'll hear more about some of our anchor grantees in a few moments. We have a 2-hour program today. But before we get into that, I want to do a couple of thank yous. First, I want to thank our partners, Studio Folia, for this partnership in bringing these events to you. So thank you to our friends at Studio Folia. Thank you, everyone. Second, I wanted to thank all of the Brazilians in the room because we are in Belém, we are in Brazil, and we are all speaking in English. And I just want to acknowledge the contradictions in that and express my extreme gratitude that you would do that for us. We do have simultaneous translation. If anyone wants that, we're very happy to provide that. Just raise your hand and we'll get you headphones. And third, as we always forget, my third thank you was to all of the speakers and all of you for making the trek over here. It's close, but when it's very warm, it can feel like a long walk. So thank you, everyone, for coming. We have, as I said, a 2-hour program, but it is going to go fast because we have 2 panels, a fireside chat, which I don't want to talk about fire in the Amazon, so we're going to call it a riverside chat. And then we have a brief awards ceremony. Because of some of the press issues taking place at the moment over at the venue, we are going to change it up a little bit and do the awards ceremony first. So I will do introductions to the panelists and to our moderator in just a moment. But first, let me hand it over to our friends at CLASP for a brief awards ceremony. Ejilani.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for all being here. I will be very brief because we have a packed schedule. And this is part of a internship that we have been doing in Brazil over the year as part of COP30 campaign that was funded by Crux. And it was running by our office, CLASP office in Brazil. And we had the amazing team of Body, that's a local agency that did the mentorship. And during the mentorship, the journalists were invited to write about subjects that is related to CLASP mission in Brazil, to Crux goals like moving energy transition, energy efficiency, the social impacts of appliances, energy access. We had a process of select the 3 best pieces, and we would like to today deliver the prizes to the 3 journalists that had the best piece. The third one was Alice Martins Moraes. She is represented here today by Laura Guido, that was her partner in writing the piece. And please come here. Yeah, photo. And the first one was Clay Medeiros with amazing piece about the public procurement of bed air conditioners in Amazon. And I would like to call Valdecir Jr., that's his representative from Acritica, that's the journalist vehicle they work. Congratulations. Thank you all very much. And you are sure this membership and their pieces will spread a lot of inputs for policymakers in Brazil. Thank you.
Thank you, Edilani. Okay, why don't we jump in? And I would just say, if anyone needs to get up, get a drink, get a snack, please feel free to do so. Just try to keep below the camera filming this, and going to share it out with social media and all of you when we're done. Okay, welcome to Clean Cities, Smarter Grids, Harnessing Policies to turn challenges into impact. So Latin America, like many developing regions, is at a pivotal moment for shaping clean and inclusive energy. We believe at the Crux Alliance that policy is at the heart of it and will be critical. Good, solid, and policy is at the heart of a clean energy transition that is both effective and just. And so our conversations today are going to draw on lessons from Brazil, Mexico, India, and a few other countries, and examine how they use coordinated policy action to have real impact. We have two panels today, and then we will also have a Riverside chat with two government officials. And so let me kick off first by inviting the first panel on demand side strategies to come to the stage. And before we do that, or as you are coming to the stage, let me introduce our guide for this afternoon. We are very honored to have Dr. Joisa Dutra as our moderator for the sessions. She is one of the most influential thought leaders in the country, whether it's through her regular columns in Folha, our partners here, or through her role as executive director of the Infrastructure Regulatory Center at Fundação Getúlio Vargas, which is one of the preeminent universities here in Brazil, or as a former director of ENEL, the Electric Energy Agency, or throughout the world where she's being called upon at Harvard School of Government or World Economic Forum. Her expertise and insights are recognized around the world. And so we are very, very grateful that she would spend this time with us this afternoon. So thank you, Joisa. Yeah. And so we agreed I will introduce the panelists and then we will get going. All right. Dr. Stefania Helva, please join us on the stage. So Dr. Helva is the Director of Industrial Transition. She leads the work of growing low carbon industry, developing hydrogen markets, and supporting renewables in the electricity matrix here in Brazil. But she is also a frequent contributor to many international fora that we see each other often at. And so I'm very grateful that you had time to join us today. Thank you, Stefania. You can clap. It's okay. Yeah. Next up is Luisa Sierra. So Luisa is the executive director of the Mexican Institute for Energy and Environmental Development. Yeah, IDEA in its acronym. Luisa leads her team creating actionable policies for just transition. I first met Luisa when she was at her previous job or previous role at the Mexican Climate Initiative, ICM, which is the Regional Climate Foundation in Mexico, where she led the research to create the country's first citizens NDC, which inspired the government to accelerate and improve its official government NDC. So thank you for that work as well, Luisa. And welcome. Yeah, you're our panelist, so you get the credit. Yeah. And then finally, Bishal Thapa. Bishal is the Chief Strategy and Impact Officer at CLASP, and CLASP is an international organization working to improve the efficiency of appliances and motors around the world. Bishal is an economist by training, if I remember correctly, and has 20 years of experience in this work, including 10 years founding and running an energy services company in his native Nepal. Yes, well, great. So welcome, Bishal. Joisa.
So Joe, thank you for inviting me to moderate this panel. Since you are so kind in acknowledging the great audience that we have that also accepts our English speaking panel. So I would give you the opportunity of also greeting the audience in Portuguese so that they can know about your Portuguese skills.
Morei aqui 6 anos no Brasil. E então, durante essa época, eu fiz questão de fazer tudo em português, fazer aulas em português o tempo inteiro. Então, eu realmente quis aprender português. Então, mas agora que eu estou aqui sem saber que eu ia falar em português publicamente, estou com medo. Mas agradecemos muito a sua presença e todo o esforço que vocês fizeram para participar e tudo que vocês fizeram para preparar para essa conversa. Agradecemos muito.
Thank you. So with no further ado, let us start. This is the first panel from Pledge.
Sorry, one thing that they gave us instructions to hold the mic close towards the top. Yes. And pointed at your mouth like this.
I have been here before. Yes, Ronaldo. Otherwise, we have experience. Yeah, if we hold like this, we have interference. Yeah. Okay. So the first panel title is From Pledge to Practice. So the first one is on energy. How can we leverage demand-side strategies to fulfill COP28 commitments? It means tripling renewables and doubling energy efficiency. So the idea is that at COP28, the governments have committed to tripling global renewable energy capacity and also to double the rate of energy efficiency improvements by 2030. These are critical steps for meeting the Paris Agreement goals. So the idea here is to, through this discussion with these experts from Brazil, India, and Mexico, yes, to explore how demand-side measures can strengthen grid stability, reduce costs, and also to accelerate the clean energy transition. It's about properly integrating renewables. It's not only about deploying renewables, it's about properly integrating renewables. Demand is a critical resource in this new decentralized architecture. And so the idea is to learn how can world or different geographies are exploring opportunities to integrate renewables. And so we are going to have it's a river, it's not a fire chat, it's a river chat question. The river chat question to break the ice, I can, yeah, so I can break the ice. Yeah, not okay. So let us the river chat. So I would ask each one of you, let us start with you, Vishal. So to briefly share a flagship or brainchild project that your institution has developed that illustrates how demand-side strategies can accelerate the energy transition.
Fantastic. Thank you for the question. Good afternoon, everybody. Great to be here. Thanks for joining. CLASP is focused on improving appliance efficiency for the benefit of people and planet. Over the years, we've worked in approximately 90 different countries, touched over 100 policies on efficiency policies that has resulted in several gigatons of emissions. So our primary focus is how do we empower governments to be able to institute policies that drive down the energy use from appliances, televisions, fans, motors, air conditioning. Those are the types of appliances we use every day, super critical to improving lives of people, but also improving productivity, lowering costs, etc. So our flagship projects, I would say, is to bring attention to how policies can play a critical role in improving the efficiency of these appliances. Policies are a critical instrument. And while that's an idea we have, our job is to really empower governments around the world to be able to make those decisions, often in the face of opposition from industry, or sometimes discomfort about the fact that these appliances policies may lead to higher costs, may lead to products not being available. So what we're trying to do is empower them, providing them evidence, gathering and galvanizing local change agents, supporting local change agents be the messengers, and essentially driving that policy change. What we're finding today is that where we stand, and particularly in turn the spirit of this COP, where we have to move from the idea to implementation, is that policy doesn't change now with just more technical information being made available. So we're looking for other gateways. Other gateways include how do we mobilize markets? How do we galvanize local stakeholders in ways that they work with local entities such as state governments and local governments? How do we use other messengers of change like the media that Edeline talked about in the programs that we have? These policies that we're able to galvanize change towards are resulting in substantial emission savings, but also on the fact that it is leading to improved productivity, competitiveness, lower cost for consumers. So what as class we're attempting to do is centralize our focus on supporting people and planet through appliance efficiency. And appliance efficiency touches lives every day. It touches industry. It touches businesses, small and large. It touches the whole gamut. So we're very privileged to have the ability to work with the full range of people for that solution.
One who introduced you also as an economist, we can see that. It's not only about the technical aspects. It's not only about the technical knowledge. How are you going to incent, yes, policymakers and regulators as well to promote change, to implement change, to improve their programs so that they can really motivate and also enforce changes in the industry? Please, Stefania.
Good afternoon. Very here with you. E Plus is a think tank. We are very technical team, a very technical team. We have been providing some technical support to Brazilian government, both in the federal level, also in the state level. And in terms of flagship project, I would like to focus on, your colleagues mentioned the efficiency side. I just would like to highlight a little bit the triple renewables in this process. We have been working a lot with the industry. So for a country such as Brazil, where we already have some issues with the microphone. No, it's working. Okay. We already achieved 90% of renewables in our power sector. So for us be able to triple renewables, we need to triple demand, right? And to support the rest of the world to triple the renewables. In this sense, we are always saying that we from E Plus that energy transition is not an end, it's a mean to achieve something. And this something, it's a low carbon economy with a better share of wealth, a better share of development, technological development. So we need to take care what we are going to do with this renewable that we are generating. So what is the use of this renewable? In this sense, we are launching during COP what we are calling the first edition of an atlas for the future of industry in Brazil. And the idea of this atlas is to highlight platform that we have, an online tool that we have, where we are mapping all the industrial facilities and all the energy potentials and all the infrastructure for energy and for ports and for pipelines to get a better understanding what are the main clusters that we can develop green industry in Brazil in order to have a better benefit and the best use that we can of all the renewable potential that we have in Brazil to develop this green industry and be able to create this green goods, not only for the Brazilian market, but also to expand our capacity to export this product. So I think for now, this is one of the main flagships projects that E Plus has. And we're gonna launch this sometime during this week. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Luisa. Now your turn.
Thank you.
If it would be brief, say 2-3 minutes so that we can have more questions addressed to you, to you all.
I'll try to speak really fast.
Yeah. Great.
No, thank you for the invite and for the kind word, Joe. And the reason I was also pointing Jorge, my colleague, it's because the flagship, the project that I'm gonna mention, it's quite related to that project, and it was like a team project together, a teamwork that like we did it again. So ICM and IDEA provided technical assistance and policy assistance, etc., to the federal government for this NDC update, like the one that will be presented during this COP. And what we find out regarding demand side measures is that demand side measures are not only complementary. It's if we want to achieve like a deep dive decarb of the whole sector, we would need demand side measures. The NDC scenario, it's quite aligned to achieving net zero in the decade of 2050, the Mexican scenario, and in that sense, that's why demand side plays a key role. I could bore you, and we don't have the time with like lots of the measures that we find out, but just to pick two of the key sectors that we have in Mexico. The first one, transport sector in Mexico, is the most meter sector. And in that, we find out that by the electrification in the mitigation scenario, by 2030, we will up at around 6 terawatt hours of demand from the EVs. And by 2035, this demand will increase by 27 additional terawatt hours. And what it's interesting in that's when we were like doing the model, it's the pressure that by electrifying this with other sectors, the pressure that provides or that represents to the power sector. And that's when we realized that coupled with the power system analysis is we start implementing, for example, tariffs, hourly tariffs, or a dynamic tariff. This could alleviate the peak or the load of the peak, or shaving the load of the peak. In Mexico, we are lucky, we have like solar potential basically in the whole country. So if we could incentivize the charging EV during like midday, for example, and we also have a good potential on wind, and during night using that could alleviate the need, for example, to invest further in gas peakers. No, so that's a key, like a demand measure that should be implemented in order not only to reduce emissions but also provide additional benefits, like, for example, less curtailment, etc., to the power system. And the last one, I promise to be the last one, Joysa, it's the industry sector. The industry sector, what we analyze is, it's important. In Mexico, industry is a relevant sector. It represents, by 2035, our projection says that the demand from this, by electrifying it will be around 250 terawatts hour. That represents almost 60% of our national demand. So it's a very important sector when we are talking about electricity demand. And what we find out is that many of the processes in the industrial sector are already electrified. So the emissions, we only see the emissions in the industrial sector. You will find out that by electrifying the ones that are not, we will only reduce like 4 megatons of emissions. We add energy efficiency measures. We reduce another 4 megatons of emissions. And this, the important aspect that we find out is not the emission reduction, but the benefit that provides implementing both together, the electrification of the processes coupled with energy efficiency, because when we run the scenario of the power system, that creates a better stability and a better less burden to the system to cope with that additional demand that will come for electrifying that. Additionally, too, that the industry can provide flexibility.
Question. So since you mentioned your brainchild project at the industry level, so the idea, can you tell us how can policy or regulatory innovations in your work could help make efficiency and demand not only efficiency standards but also distributed generation reconnect climate ambitions with social inclusions? What about the social dimension? I'm pretty sure you have worked extensively on that as well.
Yes. The one that I like better is an example that is totally, I think,
Is it on? Is it on? Okay.
no? No, it's turn on. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, the one that I like better is the one that links, for example, distributed generation, energy efficiency, and microgrids, for example. Right now, we are providing technical assistance to the Ministry of Energy in one flagship program that this administration is already implementing, that it's focused on providing solar PV systems to households that are like in a very low income rate or like in a very vulnerable aspects. And the program has already been implementing, as I said, and we are supporting the stage 2 of the program. And what we are finding out is that there are many households that we cannot, for example, install, or the government cannot install a solar PV in their solar rooftops because of the because of the quality of the building, etc. So in that sense, what we are currently analyzing it is, for example, and these families are like living in the northwest region of Mexico, where temperatures are quite high and very dry. So it will go like 40 degrees and 50 degrees during summer. So that's really, really hard. And when we are talking about poverty, energy poverty, it's because they cannot access, for example, access to cooling. And in that sense, what the government wants to do, it's like providing air conditioning efficient systems coupled with solar PV. But in some of the households, as I was saying, are not equipped enough. The strategy would be like to invest in a proper envelope, but that's too expensive. So the other analysis that we are running, for example, is yes, provide the aircon efficiency, but also providing a microgrid because and have a centralized solar PV power plant running, and then connect all the households so they could have a better, it will be not the perfect, but a much better way of living, and that impacts in a transversal way that I could elaborate further, but I think that's a key example.
Yes, microgrids are critical instruments, could be great solutions even for remote communities here. Yes, in the Amazon, certainly in Brazil, but also in the other countries in the Amazon. Hopefully our regulatory framework will evolve, yes, as well, so that we can have more of that. We can deploy more microgrids compatible with development, not only of renewables, yes, but also the social dimension, productive uses. I'm also looking at our regulator. There is going to be part of our debate later, so that he can talk later about this. So here, Stefania, to you. So since you already mentioned your brainchild work on the Atlas, yes. So how can demand side the measures and efficiency help Brazil accelerate decarbonization of hard to abate industries?
Yeah, hard to abate industries, the big issue is it's a lot of process are high temperature, so we need sometimes a lot of gas and coal. We already have some new technologies that we can replace it. But in order to do this, and this is something that it's very important to remember when we talk about industry, you need to sometimes change the entire process of producing something. So it's not only about having access to electricity in an industrial facility. If we take as an example the steel case, in order to have an electrified process or start using hydrogen to produce iron, we need to change the kind of iron ore that we use. So it's not only about the energy input, it's also about the other inputs of the process. So we need to change a lot of things in industry. And of course, having us access to this energy is something that it's crucial in order to be able to do all these changes in the industrial facility. But to do this, we need to have the demand for this green steel. If we do not have the demand for this green product and green steel, green cement, green chemicals, green whatever, we will not be able to encourage industry to do all this process. Mainly when we talk about a developing or emerging country, we don't have like the capacity to invest and state level investments for do all of this changes. So we need that industry engage, the private sector engage in this process. And for this, we need to create this demand. But also, since Brazil today, we already have the cheapest solar and wind energy, we have all the conditions to provide this kind of product with a very competitive cost to the international market. So to be able to use this industry and all the renewable in Brazil to enhance this transformation, we need also to articulate this in an international level and understanding how can we allocate the new industries, the new generations of industries that we are going to have with a sense of what are the main carbon intensity efficiency process, not only energy efficiency, but also carbon intensity. This is a new thing that we need to put in the equation in order to decide how can we have a more resilient supply chain of industry globally and also a more cost competitive green goods internationally, not only in Brazil.
So thank you for underscoring that it's about competitiveness in the end of the day. It's not enough to have a green premium if your competitors are increasing their market share at your cost. So Bichal, what have been the biggest enablers of progress and barriers as well that still stand in the way of scaling solutions like the ones we have described? This is so important for India. A fascinating case that is exceeding its renewable targets, but where demand, fortunately, is going at a very fast speed.
Great. I'll draw not just from the example from India, but also globally. I think first thing that we have to recognize is that the energy efficiency story has been well established in its ability to drive energy use down. So in the last decade, for example, between 10 and 2020, the reductions in energy intensity led to approximately 7 gigatons of emissions reductions. That's recognized. If we were to look at Brazil, for example, analysis that we did for the government in 2019 found that if you were to just improve the efficiency standards of key appliances, you would lead to a reduction of almost 100 terawatt hours of electricity demand, which would mean that you would effectively knock out close to a third or 40% of the growth in electricity demand between now and 2025. So the numbers are big, it's enormous. But the overall goal that we have globally in terms of the doubling of energy intensity improvements are falling short. We are currently at about 1.3 when we need to be at 1.8. This year, we'll probably land somewhere around 1.8, which is way short of where we need to be. So why this dichotomy? I think, why are we seeing successes in inefficiency, but we're not being able to translate it meaningfully into the types of growth that we need on efficiency? And I think there's a couple. First is that the technologies are there, but it's not being adopted fast enough. So let me give you the example of motors. The IEA draws the example of lighting where it says lighting efficiency improved by almost doubled, but overall efficiency standard has lagged behind. In motors, we find, for example, that the technology for motors is much higher than what the market average is. And if you were to actually implement some of those highest efficiency, you would knock out almost 70 gigatons of emissions by 2050. It's a massive number. I think at one of the discussions we had, Joe couldn't believe the number and asked my colleague, what's the catch? And she responded, there's no catch, only emission reductions. And so that's literally it. So we are finding that the way to approach this dichotomy is to recognize that incrementalism doesn't work anymore. We thought we'd go to support countries, you do it step by step, nudge it up. Now we're at a point where we cannot allow for incrementalism. We have to go the whole hog. We have to push much harder. We have to be far ambitious, which means that we have to be able to deploy the full range of instruments we have. We have to work with policymakers. We have to work with markets. We have to work with stakeholders. We have to work with consumers. So we got to fire faster, harder, but also chase much more. The type of growth that we need in efficiency can't be done incrementally. We need to bring the biggest solutions much more rapidly, in effect, leapfrogging the type of progress we've had in efficiency. And I think that's what we're aiming for.
5 minutes, I've been told, but just one minor comment here. Forgive me for being blunt, but often we have to acknowledge that executive bonuses are higher for renewables than they are for energy efficiency. Yes.
That's an imbalance, inequity we have to correct.
Yes, exactly. Yes. I'm willing to learn more about it. How can we propose? How can we make it? So we have a last question then to you all. So this is a COP that is a call for action. Yes. So the idea here is to listen to you, to learn from you. What should this COP deliver, in your view, to make demand side strategies a visible part of this global climate ambition, especially for emerging economies? So I'd like to start by you so that you can enlighten us even in mechanisms that could be simple but hard to implement, like the right incentives.
No, I know we have a very short amount of time, but I just want to tell you a story that I think will encapsulate the idea that I want to leave you with. Joe indicated I'm from Nepal. Every time you're in Kathmandu, like if you take off, Kathmandu is like a little bowl. And so it has hills all around. So when the plane lands, it has to descend very fast and then land. And so when it's taking off, it has to take off very fast and then turn left or right. And so one day I was on a plane taking off. I'm sitting next to a pilot. I knew him as a good friend. And he's telling me, oh, the plane's turning left. That's no good, because if one of the engine fails, it ain't going to make it over the hill. He said, that's a shortcut they should not take. And he said, instead, they should turn right. So if even one of the engines fail, so life lesson for you is don't sit next to a pilot ever. It'll stress you out. But here's the lesson for efficiency. Those engines of renewable and energy efficiency are the engines we need for thrust. If we are going to cross that mountain, we ain't going to do it with one engine. We need both those engines on fire to fire. And so we can't think of one as like a safety. Oh, renewable, do it. If that doesn't, efficiency will kick it. It can't. And I think one of the challenges that we are facing, which we're working hard at CLASP, and I think we need to engage more with stakeholders, is how to bring the efficiency discussion into the power sector mainstream. That means we're talking not just about efficiency and energy reductions, but also about capacity, what it does to the power system, what it does to portfolio. And I think what we want to do, try to accelerate the movement on efficiency, is figure out how the two engines can work together to provide the thrust to go up the mountain. I hope you visit Kathmandu. It's actually a safe flight.
So I regret that I did not call you last, because this would be a great way to finish the panel. But to you, Stefania.
I will be very brief. I think that we need to acknowledge that electrification has a cost. And if we want to have a better, a huge share, a bigger share of the use of electricity and the sectors such as transport, not only industry, but also transport. And then we can have the best use of the demand side measures and use transports, use industry as a flexibility resource. This is something that in Brazil we don't do yet, basically. If you want to do this and also have this as an important measure in the power sector in Brazil, we need to understand that this has a cost and we need to have the demand to pay for this cost. So in the power sector, we need to acknowledge that if we're going to electrify the transport, there is a cost of changing all the grid and in the industry as well. And someone needs to pay this cost, and we need to have a better share and a good attribution on who is going to pay these costs, and understand that maybe we can have a slight increase in costs at the first moment. We know that electrification is more efficient. We know that renewables are cheap in Brazil, but this change in the system has a cost, and we need to acknowledge this.
So fortunately, we are going to have a whole panel on mobility and transport, yes, to explore how can we make it better. Luisa, she already referred to flexibility. Stefania referred to flexibility. In our prep conversation, you are all underscoring the importance of flexibility. Maybe you could finish by addressing the theme as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, actually, yes, even though I think my final question, well, not question, but my final address would be sometimes we believe like in these spaces that it's already, it's not a new topic. It's been for a while there. But when we go to our like institutions, this topic is quite new. And even though they know about it, I think sometimes we are not putting enough interest and, for example, resources in capacity building and training. And at least what we are finding out is that certain resistance in changing the way of the planning, for example, of operating the power system and running a different, for example, dispatch model with the ISOs in different countries, etc. And this is a new logic that you need like to relearn and to change many of the processes that are so embedded in the institutions that represents a cost, but also knowledge. And sometimes we are, yeah, an opportunity, but I think the starting point of that, it's multivariable, but I think knowledge is it's key for this. And we need to like relearn, but also like work with those institutions in order to break that resistance and so they will be able to see the benefits and how it's a better system and a flexible one.
Thank you very much. So also for underscoring that this is about a systemic change. Yes, renewables are a piece. Yes, renewables are one component. Yes, energy efficiency is other. Demand is a critical component as well. And often in our daily activities, we keep on listening about data centers. Yes, the new holy grail. And 2 years ago, it was all about green hydrogen. We have to understand that these new pieces of demand must play an active role to improve efficiency. It's not about new load. It's about demand as an active resource in this new system architecture. Thank you for the opportunity. Let us move forward. Thank you to our panelists, amazing panelists and their work.
If it's okay, we will wait until the end to have pictures with the panelists. So please stick around. But for the sake of time, we'll move forward. Juiz, if you could please stay. Great. And we would like to start our second panel around bus electrification and the pathways to urban mobility or sustainable urban mobility. And one of the questions that I would have asked had we had time is, how does this affect people's lives? Because the clean energy transition is great, and we often talk about it as a theoretical concept, but there are places where the clean energy transition can materially improve people's lives, and we need to highlight those and double down on those. Public transportation, quality urban mobility is one of those places. So I'm looking forward to this panel. If I can invite our panelists up, we'll start with, let's see, Clarice Link. Well, yes, Clarice. Clarice is the executive director of ITDP Brazil, where she has been executive director, I believe, since 2012. Yeah, where she leads a team to promote urban mobility across cities all around Brazil. Prior to that, she did spend 6 years in Namibia promoting bike share programs and training women to be bike mechanics. And her legacy in Namibia is there are now dozens of bike shops across the country that are women run and supporting local communities. And she brought that legacy of equity and access to transportation back to Brazil with her, and we're all the beneficiaries for it. So thank you, Clarice. Next, Heather Thompson, who is also with the Institute for Transportation and Development Policy, or ITDP. Heather is the CEO and has been with ITDP for the better part of 15 years, I think, in one capacity or another. And prior to that, she co-founded one of the first, if not the first, climate-focused foundations in the U.S., certainly, the Climate Works Foundation. And she has brought that experience to ITDP, again, to all of our benefit. Welcome, Heather. And last but not least, Marcel Martins, from the managing director for the International Council on Clean Transportation here in Brazil, the ICCT. Marcel has something like at least 15, 20 years experience working on transport in Brazil and around the world. Prior to becoming managing director at ICCT, he also ran the transport policy program at the Institute for Climate and Society, or ICS, which is the regional climate foundation here in Brazil. Welcome, Marcel. Luisa. Yeah.
This was a great way to start. Thank you for sharing this previous experience of Clarissa. On a personal note, a few months ago, 3 months ago, I injured my knee running, and I'm now starting as a bike runner, as a biker, yes. And I already understood that I'll have to develop mechanical skills. I already know where to look from, but there is another opportunity. Maybe we can start a collaboration, opening a shop. Yes, yes. So, but I think Joe already gives us a hint of where to start, not only by listening to your brainchild projects, but also by asking you to help to tell us how these projects can really make a difference in people's lives. I think it's going to be an easier task, yes, because we all understand the struggles, the hurdles of a daily lives in urban centers. Please, let us start with you, Heather.
Sure. And it's really wonderful to be here with such great partners and such a rich discussion. I think COP is not only about negotiations, it's about furthering the discussion and sharing ideas. So really happy to be here. One of the, I think my role in this discussion is to provide a little bit of the global perspective, but I want to start, and I don't want to take too many words out of Clarice's mouth, but I want to start with something that we're launching really, really excited about. And I think a lot of the conversation now will talk electrification of buses. At ITDP, we are very passionate about buses because after buses are the most predominant form of transportation around the world and super important here in Brazil. So we are very excited to be launching a new mitigation action facility that's focusing on financing of buses and really trying to have the rubber hit the road. We talk a lot about implementation. We know that there are great cities investing in bus electrification in Latin America. Sao Paulo, Bogota are some of the cities that we often hear about, but those are the big capital cities, and we know that we need to move beyond those cities to scaling up implementation. And so we're very excited to be launching this finance facility that will have a dedication of 80 million euros of government funding that will leverage 450 million euros from the private sector. And it's all about public-private partnerships. We know we hear that a lot at COP. And the goal is to work on 4 cities, not Sao Paulo, but Rio, where we do a lot of work, Curitiba. All of a sudden, I'm forgetting my 4 cities, Salvador, and Belo Horizonte, of course. There we go. The 4 other great cities, and to basically double the bus fleets in the country. Sao Paulo has about 1,000 buses, and the goal is to get 1,700 buses on the ground in these 4 cities. And not only to get buses on the ground in these 4 cities, but to develop new models that we can replicate across the country. Super excited to have these models for Brazil, but also for the rest of the world, rest of Latin America, and also to stimulate more investment methods as well.
Spoiler alert.
Sorry.
No worries. It's about really, it's about really discussing. This is a great project.
It's allowed to that.
Yeah,
She's my boss.
yes, she's allowed to. Your turn, please. One brainchild project, yes, and please, how can it improve people's lives?
Yeah, I think I like to highlight the work we are doing. It's a Zebra partnership with C40. ICCT and C40 work a lot in São Paulo to implement these first buses. Since the beginning, the 14 buses, to have the thousands now. And it's a revolution. It is basically change everything in the public system. And we understand a lot of this process with São Paulo. And when Minister of Cities run the PAC, to the small cities, medium cities can access resources to buy electric buses. We understand we need to share this knowledge that we have in São Paulo. And with the Ministry of Cities, we create a group of around 20 cities to show them what it is the challenges, what they can do, and what the other cities already did. For example, testing buses and the tariffs and business models, and show them how they can really implement in an easy way this electric. And more than that, guarantee this implementation will happens very smoothly, because you're not restrict the size of the cities, so you have very small cities with less capacities and or really grand cities with a lot of capacities, but also with a lot of challenges. And at the end, what we're do is connecting climate change and qualifying public transportation. Electrification is just not a climate question, but also how you can improve the system that in Brazil represents a lot for the most that use public system to access the work, studies, and basically it is the main after activity mobility, it is the main source for mobility in the country.
We have to start asking, so we have to jump one question because we know what is your brainchild project, yes. So we understand that ITDP and partners, yes, such as Bloomberg Philanthropies, yes, have supported this new 80 million euros financing facility to scale e-buses in Brazil. So how can this initiative illustrate how policy and financial innovation can really play a role in transforming mobility, but not only about decarbonization, but also it's not only about decarbonizing mobility, it's also about improving people's lives.
Okay, that's a great question. And thank you very much, Joe, Folia, and everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I think I want to just start by saying what we see now is a lot of people moving from public transport to motorbike, Uber Motos, okay, to apps where they ask for motorbikes. 60% of users are women from the periphery. And basically, they are going from the public transport to an unsustainable, a pollutant, and a risky system because the public transport system is not affordable, is not reliable, is unsafe. So I think we have to start from this. The electrification is a great entry point, as Marcel said, is our opportunity, our window of opportunity. It's not only about changing the vehicles. We need a complete new system, a complete new ecosystem. We need a new regulatory framework. We need new contracts. We need new remuneration systems. We need new indicators. So that is our entry point to effectively change the system and to reposition public transport as the only way for us to have a resilient and just city. When we look to metropolitan areas, that's how the majority of the population travels, and in particular women from the periphery. So for me, this is really my main focus. And what we see is there has been many pilots changing for electric buses, and we need something more robust. That means building the capacity of cities so that they can roll out corridors, they can roll out systems and not only have ad hoc projects. And that means really building the industry and strengthening the industry so they can respond. And so that is also a solution for our transition in our local industry. So I think that the MAF mechanism
that we have been designed and with many partners involved and many dialogues, including with ICCT. It's a project that is being designed by ITDP and WI and Catalytic Fund and have many other players and the Ministry of Cities and the Ministry of Environment. I think it's very important to say that is our opportunity to really reach a tipping point. It's not only about rolling out the vehicles, but there is a lot of technical assistance to ensure that these cities can do that right and that this can be replicated further to other cities. So there is a catalytic component looking at other cities as well. This is really my main goal, and it has been already looking at public transport and how this can really transform people's lives and make life affordable in the city.
The entry point idea. Yes, I really like. So Heather, I understand that ITDP has developed a group of projects, a platform of projects on compacts. Yes, say the compact city is electrified. Yes, and then there is the Brazil study in collaboration with UC Davis, University of California, Davis. And in the project, the project identifies 4 futures for urban mobility: business substitution, electrification only, mode shift only, and a combination of electrification and mode shift. Could you briefly walk us through what distinguishes these scenarios, and more importantly, how Brazil and Latin America can move from modeling to implementing the most desirable path? Spoiler: electrification plus shift mode.
Spoiler, you've done your homework. Wow. Well, yeah, this is Compact City Electrified, is a series of reports that we've done. We launched the first in the run up to the Glasgow COP a few years ago, just as we were coming out of COVID, where we were really excited to see a lot of interest in electrification of vehicles. But again, our obsession at ITDP is both planet and people. So we were thinking, okay, electrification, technically good, but expensive. How far can we really get with this solution? So we did this modeling with UC Davis at the global level. And then it was so popular that we've done it also at the regional level, including here in Brazil, but also Mexico, China, India, Africa, Egypt, for the COP that was just after in Egypt, all with local partners. ICCT, of course, is one of our great partners that did the review of many of our cities, but also local partners in Brazil, where we wanted to make sure that we had more partners to go out with the message with us as well. And basically what the study shows is that we cannot get to our climate goals with electrification alone. We really need a strategy of electrification to go hand in hand with also making sure that our cities are developed in ways that are compact and that we also have a backbone of public transportation, walking, and cycling. Essentially, the idea is to minimize the number of vehicles on the road and electrify the rest. And not only good for climate change, it's also good for the energy sector. We just talked a lot about that in the last panel, about how we really have to work on the system. These things go hand in hand. So with that emphasis of both the combination of compact city development and electrification, we save about 40% of energy. So that just makes our work on the energy side a lot easier. It also saves us $5 trillion a year by 2050. And this modeling not only looked at the vehicles themselves, but also the infrastructure that's required. So the steel and the cement that goes into building roads, goes into bridges. So again, it helps alleviate our in the industry sector as well. It's also good for people. This affordability, this money that we save goes back to people. And here in Brazil, the study showed that emphasis on public transport and compact city development would reduce the cost for transportation for people by about 50%. So it's also really important in terms of, again, that combination of people and planet that we care so much about.
Well, this is very important. In the end of the day, it's either the taxpayer or the ratepayer who is going to bear the cost. Yes. So the only way forward is to lower this burden not transferring it. So Marcel, I understand that the federal government has a program, the MOVER, yes, that was launched to promote green mobility and innovation through emission reduction targets. So far, it covers mostly cars and light commercial vehicles. So how can this program be expanded or maybe aligned to include public transportation, say urban buses, so that it support our broader decarbonization and industrial policy goals as well?
Yeah, it's a very good question because we are discussing here and we saw a lot of efforts from civil society, WRI, TDP, C4, ACCT, Ministry of Cities. We saw also development banks involved on that. This is the demand side, but we need to improve the supply side. And Mover is the program that can really support the Brazilian industry to raise the competitiveness and domestically produce these electric buses. And when I say domestically, it is emerging economy. We really need to understand how this new industry can improve jobs and incomes for the country. Yes, there is sometimes parts we need to import and start the process, but we need to improve the national industry. Brazil, it is the main exporter for Latin America years ago for ICE buses, and we are losing this position, and we need to recover this position. We already have most part of the industry installing in the country. However, we don't have this clear signal from the Ministry of Industry to stimulate this industry. The MOVER program already set the targets for LDVs, and now they're discussing how will be the targets, the CO2 targets and the efficiency targets for HDVs. However, we cannot see until now any clear direction for electrification, especially when we talk about buses. And this is the interesting part because we can saw this consensus around electric buses. The mayors are asking for that. It's not just ITDP, ICCT, WRI are putting this agenda. It is clear the subnational level are asking for that. The international consensus around the best solution, it is to electrify buses. But now we really need to improve the capacity of the industry and stimulate that industry to produce these buses locally. So basically we have the opportunity now, and we need to use this opportunity in repositioning this industry. So we really hope, and we are working to improve and to guarantee these targets, and this industry will be more competitiveness and focus on electrification.
I'm eager to learn more about this. Yes, how do we articulate this at the national level? This is going to be a follow-up discussion. Yes, we had the opportunity to develop a project on mobility, electrification of mobility, including bus fleet for an MDB a few years ago. And at the time, it was not clear at the federal government that electrification was the way forward. Change it has happened at a faster pace than we anticipated. Eager to listen more in the next panel. But as a closing question, is that time? How much? We are okay? Okay, so then, Clarice, key bottlenecks in charging infrastructure and grid readiness for electrification of mobility in buses.
I think just to bring this topic, I would like to mention the experience that we have been working with the city of Rio that has the target to electrify the full fleet by 2040. So there has been like a discussion on how to phase it, right, throughout the time. Part will be from the MAF facility, but there are other players on the table as well. And one of the discussions is a lot about the distribution of these buses in the territory, in the space. We know now that almost 20% of the fleet in Rio is Euro 3 buses that are older than 13 years old, and they are in the extreme west zone and north zone of the cities, which are where most of the population live, but it's most of the poor population live, the Black population live. They have to do 1 hour to 2 hour transport every day to reach work, so they are more exposed to pollutants and etc. And so this is the low-hanging fleet for us to change. The city needs to change that immediately. Can we really replace that considering the grid readiness in this area? No. So I think this is one point that is critical for us when we're talking about just transition as well, is to understand how do we deal with it in a place, in the metropolitan areas, peripheric areas, poor areas that we already have a lot of shortage of electricity. So how are we gonna invest in a way that is just as well? Besides that, most of the depots are private land, right? So we are talking about a new concession model, a new business model. We need new players, and we need to think about new business models for the depots as well, right? So these are private land. Are we going to be putting public money into that to invest in the electricity? How the utilities company is going to be investing in this private land? So I think there are many discussions that are on the table now about land acquisition for setting up the depots in the right place, so that it is just that. That's why the cities need a lot of technical assistance to really identify their bottlenecks, their opportunities, and how we can frame it in a way that is just. I think there is a lot of demand from the cities to go on this direction, and it's a great opportunity for all the partners to really sit together and understand it all. Bring in the vehicles. If it's just a number, a handful, it's fine. Having corridors, having a systematic approach in the territory is much more complex. And I think that's what we have learned. Many cities are like, we just learned we are not ready because we don't even have the land to put the depots on. So I think this is something that it's to be seen how it will evolve in the next couple of years.
I do not underestimate the challenge. I remember at the time that we have developed that project. So we assessed for the case of São Paulo metro area, what would be the challenges to charging infrastructure, meaning depots, yes. So at the time, there was an architecture that would optimize the resources, but in the end of the day, politics played a key role, yes, and implementation was in a different way. And as a result, a lot of cost overruns happened. So this is something that we have to have in mind. So transition, yes, takes place. And also there are shocks. In that case, there were shocks. We had the war in Ukraine, yes, supply chain disruptions, energy crisis, huge cost overruns. So, and I don't know if so this is a question to the whole panel. Considering this, so how can we really tackle the challenge of implementation, considering also the need to articulate the federal and the subnational? Yes, the local.
If I can start, I think this is the interesting about the electrification of buses. We historically operate the ICE buses, and it is a local question, and you can resolve it locally easily. When we sophisticate the system and we insert the electric buses, first, the operator needs to understand how they recharge the bus, and that's it. If you recharge just at night, you demand a lot of energy. But if you have a more smart system, you don't need to concentrate the energy demand on that. So we need to bring the distributors. You need to bring the energy sector. We also need to improve the infrastructure recharge. It is other player. So you create an ecosystem related to that in the subnational, in the operational. However, without the federal orientation, without, for example, ANEEL is here, these national players putting the pathways and supporting this transition will be hard for the cities. All the cities will pass, for example, with São Paulo is passing now because São Paulo scaled the buses and now the problems start to happen. When you have just 15 buses, easy. Okay, it's something new, but we can operate easily. When we start to have thousands of buses, okay, now we have a real situation. So connect the subnational and the federal level, it is essential, it's crucial now. And it's not just because Ministry of Cities are here, but Ministry of Cities are doing that now. And I think we need to improve more with the other agencies in the federal level, because we opened this door and now we need to really to create this strong ecosystem in the subnational, but connecting with this national level. Without that, the transition will happen much more harder.
We're talking a lot, there we go, a lot about the challenges. And yes, there are many, but also we are learning and we're learning quickly. I mean, it was just a few years ago that we didn't have any e-buses on the road. And now we can point to a handful of cities in Latin America, plus many cities around the world and in the entire country of China that has figured this out. So we are learning quickly. To take a practical thing, here we are in a very hot place, right? We have learned that instead of starting a hot bus down the road and using all of your battery to air condition and cool the bus, let's store the buses with shade so that the buses start cool and we use the battery to have the bus move down the road. Such a practical thing just to have shade in your depots, but it makes the difference of the cost of running your bus and how far the bus can go. We didn't even know that just a few years ago. So again, we are learning a lot and we're progressing very quickly. I also want to touch upon your question about how do we connect the dots from local to federal level and bring it back to the supply side regulations, the mandates that we need. Ultimately, we need to connect the dots. And I think here in Brazil, we really have, want to reflect international practice, but I think here in Brazil, we have a great example of international best practice where we are connecting the dots, beginning to connect the dots from the city to the subnational to the national level. And I think we can connect the dots even better. So we have the finance and funding that we're talking about, where the government is putting more money into electrifying buses around the country. But what we haven't done is use that demand and aggregate that demand to have mass purchasing at the national level. Countries like India are doing this, which is a huge demand signal to manufacturers that the demand is coming. They need to get ready for it with more production of buses that brings down the cost. And it can be a huge push politically to get the manufacturers on board with us and ultimately to pass mandates that the country should be investing only in electrification. So it's a smart funding strategy, it's a smart implementation strategy, and it's a smart political strategy. And that's kind of the industrial policy angle that we need to have. Again, borrowing from best practice, I think we can set even better best practice here in Brazil and take that elsewhere in the world.
This was a question that I was going to ask about procurement. You're talking about procurement. Yes, we can have good lessons on that. Want to add something?
Yeah, well, I think they have mentioned many points, but I think having a national strategy really gives coherence for us to push a policy that in fact is talking about a right. So this is the first point. Transport is a right, it's set up in our constitution, Article 6. It was set up in 2015. It came a little bit later on, but it's there, and we should ensure that the government is really leading this agenda. I think this is crucial. Cities are now leading the shift, but in a very fragmented way, and then the efforts have really limit in terms of scale. So you're talking about industry. We have a fleet of 107,000 buses in the country. So there is a great opportunity for the industry to resume the position that Marcel mentioned. We were already an exporter. We were the main ones in Latin America. So there is a great opportunity for the industry. They keep telling us they are ready. We are not sure. And I think there needs to be coordination, and the federal government can coordinate this demand to ensure that it is harmonized with the message that we are sending to the industry. I think the coordinated procurement process or aggregated procurement process is crucial. We have been in many dialogues with the Ministry of Cities on that sense, with the support of Zebra and all of the other partners to standardize procurement, to ensure that we have an economy of scale. So I think this is something really great. But have the national government involved. This is really an inflection for us. As I think Marcel also mentioned, transport was always something dealt as a service provided on the ground, private sector. And so now we are talking about something else. We are talking about something that has to be government-led, right? That has to have coherence, has to have a lot of investment. That's why it's important the government helps us leveraging different funding and financing. The BNDES is telling us that we need billions, 400 billions in investment in Brazil. The public sector alone is not going to manage that. We need private sector. So I think there are many opportunities, and only with the national strategy we can really advance with that and make it part of a broader, just transition scheme, let's say, or strategy, as is being demanded so much here by all the advocates.
So thank you, Clarissa, for also pointing that transport is a right. Water is a right as well, yes? But in the end of the day, there is an infrastructure to make it available, yes. And we have to make informed choices because the impact is not neutral. Someone will have to bear the costs, be they allocated through taxes, rates, or transfers, yes? And fortunately, we have the works, yes, the projects developed by institutions like yours to inform these choices. And just for the audience that is following us, maybe through a YouTube channel, our speakers here keep on looking at the federal government representative that will join us in a few minutes and will solve our problems, all the problems, yes. But then, so just as a last question, what do you expect? What is success at COP30 for your agendas?
That's such a hard one. Well, I think first and foremost, it's just the recognition of transportation and the importance that it has. It deserves, not only here in Brazil, but everywhere in the world. And we talk a lot about climate policy, of course, that's why we're here, but also a lot about the energy sector. So just the recognition of all of the things that we've just been talking about, I think would be really great. And I don't think we're going to achieve it this round, but I'm hopeful that we will in the future, and we're going to keep pushing for it. Really more financing. We talk about financing every year, but more financing for the specific things that we know work. Buses and electrification of transportation is a climate solution we can move on yesterday. And so, but we know, and something maybe that we didn't mention is we know that the total cost of operations for an e-bus is lower than a conventional bus. So over time, you'll get paid back, but the upfront cost of the bus is more expensive, 2 times or even 3 times more expensive here in Brazil. And so it's all about having the money up front to pay for that bus. And then the new business models that we've talked about will pay it back over time, but we need that money up front. So, this mitigation action facility that we're so thrilled to be launching, if we could do that times 10, 50, 100, like that really would allow us to move forward in a large scale. It's like we've done with renewables. The more buses we have out there, the lower the costs come down. And then there's no question about the fact that the e-bus is the better bus. So that's what my hope is that we'll get to in just the next couple of years. We're making progress.
So again, you came up with a topic that was on my mind. It's about toll tax. Yes, it's not only about capex, but how can we enlighten people, administration, policymakers, to think about and to help with toll tax? Yes, Marcel, what is success?
Yeah, implementation. So when we talk about transportation in Brazil or even in other countries, but especially in Brazil, when the energy matrix is so renewable, and we put cities and climate change transportation, it is the easy and the most contributes to CO2 and air pollution. So recognize transportation. It is one of the key solutions for the cities. I think it is one relevant position that we really expected. And implementation in the other sense of finance and how we can improve these mechanisms. Yes, the cost of electric buses is higher, but the cost of operation is less. And what we need to do now is to reduce the capex cost, because everyone knows, and I think we saw the São Paulo business model, it is super clear when you put the numbers, it is better. You can really economize, you can really have a more sustainable system using electrification. However, we need to reduce the capex. With that, comparable, we don't have this comparability. Electrification is much better in all of the senses.
So thank you, Clarissa. I'm going to add something, but I think it's going to be to your benefit. Not only think about what is success at COP30, but even though we are just at the beginning of COP30, I understand that the person in your capacity is always keeps on thinking about the next project. What am I going to do next? So what would you like to do next at ITDP to advance this agenda?
That was to my advantage. Okay. Surprise
You can
question.
merchandise your.
I think just going like on a, let's say, a timeline, I will. We need to set transport as a priority, as a climate solution. Yes. We need to set public transport as a priority for climate solution. Yes. And we need to ensure the investment in public transport is not only a mitigation solution, but an adaptation solution. The cities are changing anyway. Temperature is changing anyway. Floods are happening anyway. We already talking about a new temperature, and we need to ensure that all the investment that is happening on buses, on electric buses, corridors, on integrated to active transport, they are also solutions to make cities more resilient. So we are talking about green infrastructure. We are talking about nature-based solutions incorporated into the corridors. So I think adaptation has been an important topic for ITDP since 2015 because of the work we did with the Ministry of Cities. Looking at adaptation as a crucial aspect, adaptation of the urban mobility systems to the new climate scenarios. And I think it all can be integrated together. So the public infrastructure is a mitigation solution, and it's also an adaptation solution. We need to be smart about it. And I think there are many opportunities along this way. So this is really where I would like to put all our effort into. And it is, of course, very much connected to rights again.
The speakers made my life very, very, very easy, because even though I did not address very interesting questions that were in my mind, they made it. Yes, they brought to the table resilience. Two. Thank you very much. I hope you lead in your best wishes for.
I did fail to mention at the start that after our Riverside chat with our federal ministerial level colleagues, we will have a cocktail reception. And I was standing over by the window, and I kept hearing the ice being poured into those beautiful boats. And then I kept hearing more ice and more ice and more ice. And I realized, oh, it's the ice and then the rain. And so, but we will have a cocktail reception after our final session. If I could, Juiza, please remain for one last session. If I could bring to the stage Marcos Daniel Souza dos Santos. He is Director of Urban Mobility in the Ministry of Cities and a very close ally of ITDP. And I'm sure we will talk more about your experience and work during the session. So please join us. And we have Henrique Paiva de Paula. He is the Deputy Coordinator for Energy Transition at ANEEL, which is the electricity regulator here in Brazil. And he is focused on renewables, innovation, and ESG in public policy. Welcome both. Please give them a round of applause.
Our last segment here, you had the opportunity of following the discussions, the previous discussions. A lot of work for you. Yes. I hope I can make your life a bit easier than that, of course. We understand that your life is challenging, about articulating agendas, articulating policies and regulation. It's about adapting to this architecture, to this new framework, to this new systems approach. Yes, this is a word in a world in which we have to move beyond silos, and having you both here, energy and transport, sitting in the same panel is a great way to start, or at least to move forward. I'm going to start with you, Marcos. So given your role in shaping the national urban mobility policy, ambitious, how is the government planning to integrate large-scale integration of bus corridors and zero-emission fleets across metropolitan regions? It means what are the mechanisms and institutional frameworks that you are thinking about design and implementation to enable even smaller municipalities, average size, to access not only resources, but resources in the form of technical capabilities?
Good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation. And first, welcome to Belém. I'm from Belém, but I live in Brasilia. Welcome to my city. Well, first, it's important to say that 3 years ago, the climate agenda and the urban agenda were not priority in this country. President Lula put this agenda like a priority. And we started to rebuild the climate agenda and the urban agenda in Brazil. We rebuilt the Ministry of Cities. And to do this, we need people, we need partners. And it's what we are doing in these 3 years. And we did many things because we need to save the urban transportation. We need to save the service in Brazil. We need to support the cities to save the service. It's an essential service. And in the same time, we need to accelerate our targets of emissions. Is the challenge. But for me, we can think and work in this challenge to transform in opportunities, because we have a strong industry, we have a society and population that needs this service, and during this process in 3 years, we started different fronts to work. We have a national law, and we prepare a new law, a new federal law. So we have fronts works in regulation and planning and financing and technical assistance. We did all this together. And now we know that we need to offer to the municipalities that has this autonomy here in Brazil with many incentives to accelerate this process. We need to think that we have two processes here in Brazil to accelerate and save the urban transportation, and at the same time to accelerate the electrification. So we are coordinating this in the Ministry of City. We have a big program called PAC. We have a number, more than 20 cities that are with projects of electrification, with technical assistance. We have many studies with ITDP and other partners. And now, a few days ago, I had a good conversation in the high level in the presidents to put all the ministries together. We did many jobs during these 3 years, but now we need to accelerate this process and prepare a new step of this program. It's now the moment to accelerate and to definitely coordinate this process, and in a basket, in a menu of incentives here in Brazil, to the cities, to the private sector, to the industry, and to the energy sectors. So we are in this moment discussing, after the COP30, how to put together all the ministry and the actors in this process to accelerate, and with the national coordination, because we have now this agenda, it's important to say, as a priority in our country.
So thank you. I do not under challenge. It's good to know this articulation now. Yes, because it's not even only about energy and transport, there's mobility. It's about health, environment. Yes, it's about air quality. This is a country in which more than 85% of the population lives in cities. Yes, and Clarice was even optimistic about it. In most of the cities, there is a lot of people who spend more than 2 hours a day to reach their destination, to reach transport on a daily basis, and conditions are not exactly good. So, but Henrique, let us go to an energy and demand integration. So, from the energy system and demand side perspective, so how does the regulator view and how has it behaved? How is he working to advance the interface between mobility and the electricity infrastructure? So for instance, are you helping identify challenges or bottlenecks in grid infrastructure that these advances in the electrification of mobility may pose? Because this is something that is this is a very noble role for the regulator to provide information, yes, to provide inputs to policies at the federal level. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, working. Okay. First of all, thank you for inviting Anel to be here, former colleague, former regulator colleague. And so, like Marcos mentioned, also this agenda, this energy transition agenda is relatively new in Anel. 3 years ago, we restructured the agency and created a different area that's thinking about energy transition in a different way, looking outside the agency, inside the agency as well, in a more transversal way. And that's where our coordination is. I also have here 2 colleagues from Anel, Dijani and Aurelio, who are also working very hard on this agenda. And so, yes, it's a brand new way of working. The regulator is used to think inside its own silos, yes. And then 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, we are starting to think differently. And maybe the first challenge was actually going to be part of my second answer is going to be the first one now is actually talking to different sectors. So that's what we are learning now, not only inside or within the government, but also outside the government. Third sector, think tanks. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. But so I think one of the first challenges for us is to learn where the bottlenecks are, where the challenges are. We know something about that, right? So grid infrastructure, for example, we know that we used to plan grids in a different way, or we should be planning grids in a different way now, since loads are different, are growing a different, it's a different trend. It used to be vegetative growth, and now suddenly we have large loads for example, bus charging, and that requires the regulator any way of thinking how we regulate that, how we think about our framework, regulatory framework. So we're thinking about that right now, but not only infrastructure, but also how do we better use our time, or how do we design. Okay, so last week we launched a regulatory impact assessment on white tariffs. So whoever knows what a white tariff is, a time of use tariff in Brazil. That's not very popular. It's been a few years since we have that, and not a lot of enrollments. And so now Anel recently reassessed that, and in this new regulatory impact assessment, there are new recommendations. For example, mandatory adoption of that white tariff, that time of use tariff. So we are also looking at ways of incentivizing the use of energy, the use of electricity in the right time for the consumer, right time for the grid. I think these are 2 main aspects we're facing right now.
Yes, on a more technical regulatory piece of information, Brazil is now going through a period of renewal of its concession contracts for 20 out of circa 60 utilities. So these 20 distribution companies serve roughly or circa 60% of the population as well. And the new concession contracts will bring opportunities, yes, to adapt, yes, to develop resilience, because in the end of the day, the grid planning to support this electrification of mobility has to bring additional resilience and also a high resolution of our understanding of these grids. What does it mean? We have to be able to connect pricing and quality as well. You touched upon that. You said, oh, it now have a mandatory time of use rate. As of today, ANEL is holding a seminar, yes, to discuss regulatory sandboxes, yes, regulatory sandboxes on pricing, on tariffs. I was invited to speak at the opening panel. Vagnaldo convinced me to be here, yes. Unfortunately, I was not able to be in Brasilia at the same time. But at least you are conveying this message. And now I think I have a cross-cutting question to you both, since we have to move beyond the silos approach. So let us talk about institutional alignment. So how do your agencies span mobility policy and power regulation? What are the key points of alignment between transport electrification and grid modernization that federal policy and regulation at the federal level must address to ensure this coherent, affordable, and inclusive transition? Yeah, start. Yeah. So let us reverse now.
Is it working? Yeah, actually should be doing like that, right? So yeah, everyone mentioned that before, but working together, I think, is our main challenge, not only throughout different sectors, but also federal, state, and municipal levels as well. We are, so this is the end of the electrification. The is an ANEL, like this. Okay, it's not even an ANEL, but a few months, 1 year ago, maybe, Director General Sandoval decided that this should be an important agenda for us. So we are looking into that more intensively recently and working together not only within our headquarters, but also with different stakeholders. So recently we signed a technical cooperation agreement with WRI Brazil to be part of a platform that EFAS platform, most people must know here. And we are talking with other stakeholders, other players to learn more. So I think this it's a cross-cutting subject, and talking to different stakeholders in different levels, different sectors, is what we should be doing with the Ministry of Cities as well. So we used to talk with Ministry of Mines and Energy, basically. Recently, we've been developing works with Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, and also Ministry of Mines and Energy. So I think that's another key role we, as regulators, should be doing, helping policymakers build better policies. We know a little bit about rates, about the costs that policies can inflict or create. So that we should be doing that more often. We are doing that a little bit more often now.
I need to say that I have many partnerships and friends because I love urban mobility. And what we are doing with Ministry of Energy, we have a project with the support of GIZ called Acoplare. So we have in the Ministry of City a national program to financing the buses and infrastructure. And we have the Ministry of Energy that needs to know the challenges, what they had to do with the operators. So we have this project together with the cities. The cities, we can support the cities financing the buses and the infrastructure. And we are offering technical assistance specifically to understand the challenge and what kind of business model we can promote in Brazil. we have 5 seats in this project, and in the 5 cities, we have 4 different business model. We are understanding and studying these challenges, and in the next year, we are thinking that the buses will be riding in the cities, and this type of alignment is important because the dialogue, for example, in a city, in a municipality, you need to have this dialogue with the private operator that is local, with the team of the city, and with the team of in national level. So this pilot is important to understand when and what we can do to have a good conversation and considering the autonomy of the cities and then in the national level to accelerate this process and create, as I said, a basket, a menu of solutions to replicate. This pilot finished now in this year, and we are preparing other technical assistance like this, and to offer for more cities in Brazil, and bringing this experience to improve the program.
Yeah, this is music to my ears. In fact, I started my professional career with experimental economics. Yes, this is how I ended up becoming a commissioner at the Federal Electricity Regulator, interacting with the government in auction design for renewables. And it's good that you are advancing that, you understand the value of this, because paraphrasing, we are all in the same bus. Yes, we are all in the same bus here. And this gives me the opportunity of asking a final question. This is an offer, yes, from Joe, yes. So I'm asking this question on his behalf. Crux Alliance would like to know whether the regulator, yes, or maybe the government, maybe oversees opportunities for further collaboration from institutions, organizations like this that have developed valuable work, yes, to advance your agendas. This is the Christmas tree time. You can all hang your wishes, but you may be modest as well, and also have less wishes this time, and I'm pretty sure that Joe will be open and other philanthropists as well in a later moment. If I were to hang one, or at least to talk to one of them about this, I would say there is a major governance challenge. Yes, because we are talking about implementing policies, adapting regulations, where we can look for inspiration elsewhere, but we are really in the same boat because we are facing the same challenges of advancing decarbonization. For instance, in its power sector, Brazil usually or used to see itself as unique with high share of renewables, but even though we still have a high share of renewables, we are similar in nature to other countries. Yes, we have a high participation, a high share of variable resources that need to be integrated, so challenges of grid integration. And also, we have to understand this system has evolved to private capital ownership. Yes, it's not only about articulating efforts in government companies. Yes, you have to create incentives. This is the job of a regulator. You are not the one who does something, you are the one that creates incentives for others to do and also enforce it. Yes. So on a Christmas tree time, yes. So what is your wish? Careful with what you wish for.
Yeah. May I start? Okay. Who wants to help me answer a question? Okay. Here's a question for you guys. What's the regulator's role? I'm reading now because I wrote that in my wish. What's the regulator's role regarding charging stations, for example? Should we oversee that? It's a private business. What should we as a regulator, electricity regulator, not energy regulator? In Brazil, we have two different roles. We have ANP, who regulates oil, gas, and biofuels. We have ANEL that regulates electricity, right? So we have a charging station inside a gas station. What should we do as regulators? Help me. That's something we might want to know. And working together with think tanks, with private, with third sector, with universities, is what we may need to do right now in order to advance in knowledge sharing or knowledge building, depending on the question. So I think that would be my Christmas ball hanging on the.
Yes, if I may add, there are several opportunities coming from generative AI. We can have access to better information, to more granular information, and making information available, making information transparent will give opportunities for other stakeholders to bring their analysis, yes, to help inform your decisions in the future. This is a more decentralized architecture, not only in the resources, but also in the information. To tap in this potential, it's important to be open. Be sure of what can you make available for others to help you. Sorry, Marcos.
Thank you very much for that.
We are starting. I have many projects in Microsoft City. I don't know how to sleep. But, and my dreams are urban mobility and electromobility. Yes, that's why I have many friends and partnerships to help me. We are, we know that we have a big challenges, and it's important in technical assistance to develop regulatory innovation. I think it's one of the main challenges and opportunities for Brazil. But as you said, we need to work data informations in urban mobility, consider the passenger and consider the people. As Clarice said, we have women, we have Black people. We need to understand what we need to do in the urban transportation and consider the opportunity of electrification to bring and to the other passenger to bring back the other passenger for the urban transportation, and thinking that we need to offer a excellent service for these people. To finish, I know that it's important to develop the regulatory innovations, and for this is important to improve data and information, but we need to think we are doing this for peoples, to go to the job, to live in the city. Yes, and maybe when we are looking for the data and we are in operation, for example, here in COP30, that I'm here, but I'm helping in the operation of the buses here, because it is important to see the difficulties, the barriers, the challenges to operate e-buses that we have here, e-buses. So it's important to talk with the people and understand what we need to put in a regulation that will help the journey, that will help this business model. So the data, the information, we can have this here in an app, but it's important to live the operation and to hear the people, especially the women and especially in the battle, and to construct this business model and this regulation.
Welcome to the Know Your Client world.
Can I just give you a quick example of how we're trying to listen to people? It's going to be very silly, but it's interesting because it just happened today. You mentioned the workshop on just on in a regulatory seminar on tariffs, and we were talking yesterday about. So we read the regulatory impact assessment report this week because it was issued last week, and we have to update ourselves. So we read it, Jen and I, and then one of the questions is what should be the name of the tariff? It's the white tariff today, and it's not very popular, right? Who knows what white tariff is? We know, but it's not very intuitive. So there's a question at the regulatory impact assessment report, and there are 3 or 4 recommendations that came from our minds, right? Minds of the regulators writing that report. And then Jen and I said, why don't they ask at the workshop for the people there, what should be the name of it? And then Camila, who was at one of the people we talked to, she said, oh, that's a good idea. We should ask people what we should put in the regulation, right? And then they did that today, and then we just found out that the name was right time tariff, something like that, right time tariff. So that was a contribution from everyone that was at this workshop today. I'm not sure if they're gonna consider it at the regulation, further regulation, but yeah, that's what we should be doing more often.
Yeah, let me tease you. It's good that you ask the audience, but also we have to ensure that the audience in the seminar was representative of users. Yes. We have to be inclusive. And just so I'm going to mark with one of our projects, the projects that we have developed our center, because I think they connect greatly with what you just said. So we have worked extensively to understand resiliency needs. Yes, how to develop resilience on grid networks. Yes, we are going to launch an initiative also for transmission networks here in COP30 this coming Friday with EPI, the energy research company. But also our work focuses also on understanding not only the technical dimension of resilience, but the social vulnerability to climate events for those people that are impacted at a very high resolution level, meaning the census tract. And this is information that is independent, freely available, and that can be tapped into, yes, by the regulator and by the policymaker to advance climate goals, the climate agenda in a just energy transition. Thank you, Espaço Folha. Thank you, Joe Vagnaldo, for the opportunity of learning from this amazing group of panelists. I wish you the best in the coming days at COP30.
Luisa, thank you, everyone. Before we go to cocktails, just a reminder that if the panelists could all come up and we'll take some pictures, which we appreciate. And I was going to have our colleague Hosanna Santos, who just walked in from the rain, say a few words. But why don't we grab some drinks first, give her a chance to dry off a little bit, and then she and Julia will say a few words. But please enjoy the cocktails. Thanks so much.